Welcome back to Globewise Entertainment, where we dive deep into the untold stories of Hollywood's past. In this part 2 of our series, we continue to uncover the forgotten tales of Golden Age stars, icons who once ruled the silver screen, but in their final days, found themselves alone and out of the limelight. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss another fascinating chapter of Hollywood history. Now, let's take a closer look at more legends whose stories deserve to be remembered. 1. Hedy Lamarr, 1914 to 2000. The forgotten genius, Hedy Lamarr, 1914 to 2000. Once dubbed the most beautiful woman in the world, Hedy Lamarr was more than just a glamorous face on the silver screen. A golden age starlet of Austrian descent, Lamarr captivated audiences in films like Algiers, 1938, and Samson and Delilah, 1949, becoming a symbol of elegance and allure in 1940s Hollywood. But behind the stunning image was a brilliant mind. During World War II, Lamarr co-invented a frequency-hopping technology, an innovation designed to help torpedoes avoid being jammed. Though the U.S. Navy dismissed her idea at the time, it would decades later become the foundation for modern technologies like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. Despite her pioneering intellect, Hedy's later years were marked by isolation and financial struggle. The spotlight faded. Her final decades were spent in reclusion in Florida, her beauty long forgotten by a fickle industry and her genius only faintly recognized. She spoke to few, rarely appeared in public, and distanced herself even from family. On January 19, 2000, Hedy Lamarr died alone in her home at the age of 85. No red carpets, no flashing cameras, just silence. Only after her death did the world begin to appreciate the full scope of who she was, not just a Hollywood icon, but a trailblazing inventor. In 2014, she was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Her life remains a haunting reminder of how beauty can overshadow brilliance, and how even the brightest stars can be forgotten, until we choose to remember them. 2. Jack Cassidy, 1927 to 1976. The rise and fall of Jack Cassidy, a golden age star who died alone and forgotten. Jack Cassidy was the embodiment of charm and sophistication on stage and screen. Born in 1927, he rose to prominence in the 1950s and 60s as a gifted actor and singer, known for his roles in Broadway musicals like She Loves Me and numerous appearances on television, including guest spots on Columbo and the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. With his debonair persona, piercing blue eyes, and rich voice, he seemed destined for enduring fame. Behind the scenes, however, Cassidy's life was spiraling into chaos. Despite professional success, his personal life was marked by emotional instability, alcoholism, and mental health struggles. His marriage to actress Shirley Jones, mother of his son, teen idol David Cassidy, ended in divorce after years of turmoil and infidelity. As the spotlight dimmed in the mid-1970s, Cassidy's behavior became increasingly erratic. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, he suffered from delusions and was briefly institutionalized. His relationships were strained, and by the end, he was living alone in a small apartment in West Hollywood. On December 12, 1976, Jack Cassidy fell asleep on his couch with a lit cigarette in hand. A fire broke out in the early morning hours, consuming the apartment and taking his life. He was just 49 years old. Though once a celebrated performer and the patriarch of a famous showbiz family, Cassidy died alone, his brilliant career overshadowed by personal demons and a tragic, fiery end. Today, he is rarely mentioned among the greats of the Golden Age, yet his story remains a haunting example of how quickly Hollywood's bright lights can fade. 3. Diana Dors, 1931 to 1984. The tragic tale of Diana Dors, the blonde bombshell Britain left behind. Diana Dors was once hailed as Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, a glamorous blonde bombshell who lit up the silver screen in the 1950s with her beauty, charisma, and sharp wit. Born Diana Fluck in 1931, she broke into acting as a teenager and quickly rose to fame, starring in films like Yield to the Night and The Long Haul. Her image was a blend of sultry allure and cheeky charm, making her a household name across the UK and even Hollywood. But beneath the glamorous exterior, Diana's life was far from perfect. Her personal life was marred by scandal, heartbreak, and financial troubles. Multiple failed marriages, publicized affairs, and rumors of wild celebrity parties followed her wherever she went. As her fame began to fade in the 1960s, so did the offers from studios. She attempted to reinvent herself through television and cabaret, but the sparkle of stardom was already dimming. In her later years, Diana battled serious health issues, including cancer and diabetes. She also endured intense financial strain, partly due to mismanagement and extravagant living. Her once lavish lifestyle was reduced to quiet struggles behind closed doors. Diana Dors died in 1984 at the age of 52, far from the spotlight she had once basked in. Though a few loyal fans mourned her passing, the world had largely moved on. The blonde bombshell who once captivated Britain had slipped away quietly, with little fanfare. Today, Diana is remembered by some as a glamorous icon, but her lonely end is a haunting reminder of how fame can fade, and how even stars can be forgotten. 4. Victor Mature, 1913 to 1999. The quiet exit of Victor Mature, a golden age star who died alone and forgotten. Victor Mature was once the picture of Hollywood masculinity, broad-shouldered, handsome, and effortlessly charismatic. In the 1940s and 50s, he starred in biblical epics and noir thrillers, most notably as Samson in Samson and Delilah, 1949, and in classics like My Darling Clementine and Kiss of Death. Audiences adored him. Directors trusted his screen presence. Studios banked on his box office appeal. Yet, despite his fame, Mature never quite took himself, or Hollywood, too seriously. He once famously said, "I'm no actor, and I've got 64 films to prove it." His self-deprecating charm made him likable off-screen, but it also reflected a growing disinterest in the industry's demands. By the early 1960s, Mature began to pull away from the limelight. He turned down roles, refused interviews, and eventually retired completely. Instead of chasing the next big part, he focused on golf, family, and a peaceful life away from the cameras. While others scrambled to stay relevant, Mature seemed content with fading into the background. In 1999, Victor Mature passed away from leukemia in Rancho Santa Fe, California. There was no media frenzy, no grand memorial, no Hollywood send-off. He had quietly slipped away from the spotlight years earlier, and in death, he remained just as quiet. Though he had once been one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, few in the industry marked his passing. Victor Mature's story is a rare one, not of scandal or downfall, but of a star who chose silence over spectacle. And in doing so, he became one of the many golden age icons who, despite their once glowing fame, died alone and largely forgotten by the industry they once ruled. 5. Lou Costello, 1906 to 1959. The lonely end of Lou Costello, a golden age star who died alone and forgotten. Lou Costello was once one of the most beloved comedians in America. As half of the legendary duo Abbott and Costello, he helped define an era of comedy in the 1940s and early 1950s. Their classic routine, Who's on First, remains one of the most iconic in comedy history. With his childlike charm, frantic energy, and perfect timing, Lou brought laughter to millions, but behind the laughter was a man burdened by personal tragedy and a fading career. Born in 1906, Costello reached the height of fame during World War II, bringing comfort to troops and families alike. But fame didn't shield him from heartbreak. In 1943, Lou's infant son drowned in a swimming pool accident just days before the boy's first birthday. Lou went on with a scheduled performance that same night, a decision often cited as a sign of his incredible professionalism, but the grief never left him. As television took over in the 1950s, Abbott and Costello lost their grip on the spotlight. Financial troubles and tensions between the partners grew, eventually leading to the end of their partnership in 1957. Lou attempted a solo career but never regained the success he once knew. In 1959, at just 52 years old, Lou Costello died of a heart attack in a hospital bed in Beverly Hills. Though his wife and daughter were present earlier that day, he was alone when he passed, just hours after completing a voiceover session for a new animated character he hoped would mark a comeback. Once one of the most famous entertainers in the world, Lou Costello's death barely made a ripple in a Hollywood already moving on to new stars and trends. His story is a sobering reminder of how even the biggest names can fade into quiet obscurity. 6. Carole Landis, 1919 to 1948. The tragic end of Carole Landis, a golden age star who died alone and forgotten. Carole Landis was once one of Hollywood's most dazzling beauties, a rising star of the 1940s, adored by fans and admired by studios. With her glamorous looks and magnetic screen presence, she quickly rose to fame in films like 1 Million BC and became a popular pin-up girl during World War II, boosting troop morale with tireless USO tours overseas. But behind the scenes, Carole struggled with emotional instability, failed relationships, and a desperate longing for lasting love and recognition. Despite her popularity, she never quite broke into the top tier of Hollywood stardom, often overshadowed by other leading ladies of the time. Her personal life was marked by a series of troubled romances, the most painful of which was with actor Rex Harrison, who was married and refused to leave his wife for her. The relationship devastated her. Feeling hopeless and heartbroken, Carole took her own life with an overdose of sleeping pills on July 5, 1948. She was just 29 years old. What made her death even more tragic was that she was found by Harrison himself, who delayed contacting authorities. The scandal that followed was quietly swept under the rug, and Carole's name slowly faded from public memory. Despite her beauty, talent, and service to her country, Carole Landis was buried without the fanfare she once commanded. A star who gave everything to Hollywood and her country, yet in her final moments, found herself utterly alone. 7. Ray Miland, 1907 to 1986. The forgotten end of Ray Miland, a golden age star who died alone. Ray Miland was once one of Hollywood's most respected leading men, celebrated for his charm, versatility, and deep voice. Born in 1907 in Wales, he found fame in the 1930s, appearing in over 100 films. His career reached its pinnacle when he won an Academy Award for The Lost Weekend, 1945, a powerful portrayal of an alcoholic struggling to break free from his demons. Miland's talent was undeniable, and he was a fixture in both dramas and comedies, working alongside legends like Barbara Stanwyck and Fred Astaire. However, as the years passed, Miland's star began to fade. As the 1960s rolled in, his roles became less frequent, and his once prominent presence in Hollywood diminished. By the 1970s, Miland had largely retreated from the limelight, living quietly in a modest home in his later years, away from the parties and red carpets that once defined his life. Despite his fame, Miland spent much of his final years in solitude, away from the Hollywood circle that had once adored him. The man who had dazzled on screen was now forgotten by many, and his personal life had become more isolated. On March 10, 1986, Ray Miland passed away in his Century City apartment in Los Angeles, at the age of 79. His death went unnoticed for several days. A man who had been a beloved star, adored by millions, died alone, his passing marked only by a small, quiet funeral. Miland's story is a bittersweet reminder that fame is fleeting. Despite his Oscar win and long career, the world seemed to move on, and the very industry that had once elevated him eventually left him in obscurity. His death was a quiet one, in stark contrast to the glory of his earlier years. Ray Miland may have left the world unnoticed, but his legacy as an actor, particularly in The Lost Weekend, remains. His life and career, though overshadowed in his later years, still shine as a testament to the brilliance of Hollywood's golden age. 8. Peggy Hopkins Joyce, 1893 to 1957. The Forgotten Tragedy of Peggy Hopkins Joyce, a Golden Age star who died alone. Peggy Hopkins Joyce's rise to fame in Hollywood seemed like the epitome of glamour and allure, yet her tragic end was one of loneliness and obscurity. Born in 1893, Peggy was a striking beauty who quickly made her mark in the world of show business. She first became famous as one of the Ziegler Follies dancers, known for her charm, wit, and stunning looks. By the 1920s, she had transitioned to the silver screen, where her glamorous presence caught the eye of Hollywood's elite. Peggy was the talk of the town, dating powerful men, including millionaire J.P. Morgan, and securing a lavish lifestyle. Her whirlwind romances, lavish spending, and tumultuous relationships quickly became fodder for tabloids, painting her as the quintessential femme fatale. But Peggy's fame would be short-lived. Despite her beauty, her career faltered, and she became known more for her personal life than her acting skills. Her marriages, 3 in total, were filled with drama and scandal, further eroding her once glamorous image. She married wealthy men for financial security, but these marriages ended in divorce, leaving her with little but a tarnished reputation and fading wealth. By the 1930s, Peggy had vanished from the screen. Her personal life spiraled into chaos, with her finances dwindling and her health declining. In her later years, she retreated from the public eye, living in relative isolation. Struggling with poverty and alcoholism, she was no longer the dazzling figure that once graced the pages of Hollywood magazines. In 1957, at the age of 64, Peggy Hopkins Joyce died in obscurity in a rundown apartment in New York City. There were no mourning crowds, no adoring fans, just the quiet passing of a woman who had once been at the heart of the glittering world of Hollywood. She was buried in a modest grave, far from the high society circles she had once frequented. Her story is a somber reminder of the fleeting nature of fame and the price that often comes with the spotlight. Peggy Hopkins Joyce, once a symbol of glamour and excess, passed away alone and forgotten, her legacy overshadowed by the scandals that marked her life. Her name may no longer be well known, but her story lingers as a tragic chapter in the history of Hollywood's golden age. 9. Carole Lombard, 1908 to 1942. Carole Lombard, the bright star who died too soon and alone. Carole Lombard, born in 1908, was one of the brightest stars to grace Hollywood's golden age. Known for her comedic brilliance and effortless beauty, she was one of the most beloved actresses of her time. With roles in iconic films like My Man Godfrey, 1936, and 20th Century, 1934, she was the epitome of the glamorous, fun-loving leading lady. Her charm was undeniable, and her career soared. She was a top box office draw, loved for her quick wit and comedic timing, becoming the highest-paid actress in Hollywood by the late 1930s. But beyond her on-screen success, Carole was known for her down-to-earth nature and love for her fans. She was a beloved figure both in Hollywood and across the country. In 1939, she married Clark Gable, one of the biggest stars of the era. Their relationship, though filled with public adoration, was also bittersweet, as their marriage was brief. Gable was still reeling from the death of his first wife, and though Carole brought him joy, their time together was cut short. On January 16, 1942, Carole's life came to a tragic and unexpected end. At just 33 years old, she was killed in a plane crash near Las Vegas while returning from a Bond tour to support the U.S. war effort during World War II. The crash was a devastating blow, not only to Hollywood but to the nation, as Carole had become an icon of American spirit. Her death was a shock to millions, but perhaps the most tragic part of her passing was the loneliness that marked her final moments. On that fateful flight, Carole was with a group of people, including her mother and others on the plane, but the crash left her life in isolation. She never had the chance to grow older, to share in the world she helped entertain, or to witness the true legacy she had created. Despite the widespread mourning, Carole Lombard was quickly overshadowed by other figures in Hollywood, and as time passed, her name became more distant from the public's consciousness. Though she is still remembered today, her story is one of beauty, brilliance, and a tragic untimely end, as a star whose final moments were filled with the sorrow of sudden loss and forgotten recognition. 10. James Dean, 1931–1955. James Dean, the tragic end of a golden age icon. James Dean, the rebellious heartthrob of the 1950s, remains an eternal symbol of youthful angst and Hollywood allure. His performances in East of Eden, 1955, Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, and Giant, 1956, cemented his place in cinematic history, and his legacy as a cultural icon only grew after his tragic death. But despite his monumental impact on film, Dean's story ended in solitude, leaving a lasting emptiness that would haunt his admirers for decades. Born in 1931, Dean's rise to fame was swift. His intense, raw performances struck a chord with audiences, capturing the spirit of a generation. With his brooding looks and vulnerability, he became the embodiment of teenage rebellion, someone who had it all and yet was lost in the process. But just as it seemed James Dean's star would continue to shine brighter, it was tragically snuffed out. On September 30, 1955, at the age of 24, James Dean died in a car crash while driving his Porsche 550 Spyder on a winding road in California. His sudden and violent death stunned the world. A rising star, gone in an instant, with so much potential left unfulfilled. The irony was that, despite his fame, James Dean was alone in his final moments. He had been driving alone, without the presence of a close companion or loved one. His passing was only discovered after hours, as his car had crashed and come to a stop, leaving him with little to no chance of survival. His parents were not nearby, and though his career was at its peak, he had no immediate family in his final moments to mourn or hold his hand. Though fans and fellow actors mourned his passing, there was no family member present at the hospital, no one to help him through his final hours. His fame, which had made him a household name, did little to shield him from the tragic, solitary end he met on that fateful day. In death, Dean became a legend, a symbol of lost potential and youthful passion. His image has only grown in stature since, with his roles forever immortalized on screen. But the fact remains, despite the adoration he received from millions of fans, James Dean passed away alone and forgotten by those who could have been closest to him. His story is a haunting reminder that fame cannot always shield a person from the loneliness that can sometimes come with it, and that even the brightest stars can burn out far too soon. That concludes part 2 of our series on Golden Age stars who died alone and forgotten. These stories are more than just headlines from the past, they're reminders of the real lives behind the fame, the glory, and the eventual silence. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, now's the time. Click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss part 3 and more stories from the golden days of Hollywood. Thank you for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.